What's up, everyone? I'm James Finkbeiner, and welcome to another Western Standard election special. Well, what a crazy week it's been. We've seen everything from a Calgary Liberal candidate telling Alberta that they should fit in or fuck off, to the Tories surging ahead in the polls. The Tories now sit at 37% to the Liberals' 31% in the latest Main Street poll. And they aren't the only ones surging ahead in the polls. Mad Max's PPC now sits at 16% in Alberta. And to add more drama to the contest, we have Derek Sloan, former Ontario CPC MP, running in the riding of Airdrie Banff. He sat down with me today to discuss his bid. All right, well, I am here with Derek Sloan. He's running for independent MP for Airdrie Banff. And welcome to the studio.
Glad to be here, James. Thanks for having me.
I actually think you are the first in-studio guest we've had with the new studio since the lockdowns, since Corona. And yeah, we appreciate it. We really appreciate you coming in.
Glad to christen your office.
Yeah, thank you. It's quite the studio.
It's a great view in here.
Yeah, the windows. Derek really hooked me up. I was surprised.
Yeah, corner office.
Yeah,
that's great.
The last one here, I've got this great view of downtown behind me. I came out to your announcement. Yeah. We live streamed it. It was great. Lots of old Reform MPs, people that are very well respected in Alberta. Lots of great support. There was no shortage of people there. So is that why you chose that riding? Is because there's so much support there already?
Well, I actually have a lot of support all over Alberta. And of course, I was touring Alberta before we made the announcement to do that. And we were getting crowds like that in all areas that we went in Alberta. We had some, quick decisions to make when the writ was dropped, and many people have been asking me to run in Alberta, and of course I have a heart for Alberta, and I always enjoy when I come out here, and so we made the decision to go into Banff Airdrie. Yes, we do have a lot of support there, but primarily it's because the whip of the Conservative Party is running there. He's the guy that's been twisting arms behind the scenes, asking Conservative MPs to stand down and to vote in favor of some of this Liberal legislation. So wanted to make sure that we were targeting someone that deserved to be targeted and not just choosing a riding based on the most favorable for myself.
Okay, so it is mostly about the party whip being there then.
We do have a lot of support in Banff Airdrie, but there's some ridings where we have even more support. But I wanted to make sure that we were targeting someone who deserved it.
Yeah, that's actually a question that's been asked by a lot of our members, is why not choose something like Medicine Hat, Cardston, Warner?
Yes.
They have very large Mormon population. They have very religious people in those areas. Yeah. There's parts of Manitoba as well, and I think around the Steinbach area. Some of the stuff that the Manitoba government has done in those areas has just been appalling. And I mean, of course, we've seen several pastors in Alberta being thrown in jail, and those ridings are also available. So there's a lot of support there.
That's right. Yeah, we looked very closely at a number of ridings, and it's true that there's a lot of support in many different places. But this one seemed to be just right, and many of the people that endorsed me are actually right from this area. And I've had a lot of good experiences in this area and a lot of support here, and we just felt it was the right fit.
So what about Max? Max is coming out to the riding. He's going to be there I believe the 30th and 31st. He appears not to be going down in that riding without a fight. Nadine Wellwood, she is a correspondent, or was a correspondent for the Western Standard for a short period as well. And she has basically come back firing when you said to the Maverick Party and to the PPC to stand down in that riding. And now Max is coming out to the riding, so it doesn't appear that they're going to back down in that riding. What would you have to say to Max, and what about to Jay Hill and the Maverick Party about those ridings?
Yeah, well, listen, I understand that everybody wants to have their piece of the pie, and it's clear that other candidates are going to be running. I think that's fine. I mean, to me, in this riding, and I say this, just based on the facts as they are, I have a great shot at taking out Blake Richards. If I'm missing that by a few points, and it's because that vote went to the PPC or the Maverick, that would be a hindrance to all of our different movements, okay? Because we have a lot of similarities. And, for me to take out a conservative big gun would show that the Conservative Party is vulnerable in Alberta. It would It would give encouragement to all alternative parties, whether it be Maverick or PPC. So they're doing what they're doing. It's a shame, frankly. I mean, listen, I said to Max, and I said this to him personally. I said, listen, I could run right now 80 or 100 candidates. Okay, I'm not, because why would I do that? Right? The election has come on us. We picked 2 strategic ridings that, frankly, hold symbolic significance for kind of the protest movement. And I said, listen, I'll endorse you. I wouldn't run somebody against Maxime Bernier. Okay, I wouldn't. At this point, we have an election going. We have a good slate of Liberty candidates across the country. Now, I understand that Nadine, was running already and all these kinds of things, and I get that. So I understand that she's fighting and all this. But in the bigger picture, this is about our freedom movement. And frankly, I wish that we would have been able to work together better. And, his response to that is, well, Derek, I invited you to join the party and you should have joined. But you know what? Politics sometimes takes some time. And I would have been more than willing to, kind of endorse them. And I have been. When people say, who should I vote for? I say, well, look at the PPC candidates, see if they're a good candidate in your riding. So I would say I'm a bit disappointed on that. And I've had some discussions with Max on that. They're, obviously fighting to win, and that's fine. But it is, it's hard to work together with somebody down the road when they're not willing to make, he has 337 ridings to go full bore, and I don't think there's any reason to do a couple events here. That being said, it's obviously his choice, but it is, I think, disappointing because we've worked on things together. We did a parliamentary press conference together that is a top 10 most viewed political video of all time. There's been pretenses of working together, but working together basically means join me or see you later. And I think there's more options to work together than just that. So I'm a bit disappointed, but I wish him the best, and I wish that this election unseats Justin Trudeau and gets some Liberty candidates in there.
So is that what it was? Was that it was going to be Max's way or no way? Because you guys have very similar policies. Like you guys both advocate for smaller government at the federal level, more provincial control, more personal responsibility, more individual freedom. A lot of the vast majority of your platforms cross over. So was there just an impasse that the two of you just couldn't get past for you to join the PPC as a candidate for them? Or was it something else? Just something that you felt that the PPC's missing that you couldn't buy into?
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, politics sometimes takes time, and of course we have an election upon us here, and we're making decisions and working as best we can. The basic proposition from the PPC was join us, or if not, best of luck, kind of thing. And for me, I felt that Canada needs something slightly different, and something that encompasses sort of the three-dimensional conservatism that I ran on. So I believe that for conservatism to win, it has to be, of course, fiscally conservative, but also have strong social conservative policies that promote faith and family in a way that's intelligible in our 21st century. So I don't believe that you can we obviously have to be fiscal conservatives. We have to be, foreign policy conservatives. We have to be social conservatives. And we have to do it in a way that fits in our culture. But you can't be one and not the other. And I feel that nobody has really honed in that vision. I think we need, if we're going to build for the future, we need to have that vision. And I like a lot of the things that Max is doing, but I felt that he didn't quite have that vision that was needed. Doesn't mean that I don't wish them the best in this election. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't have even endorsed, some of their candidates in this election. But I just felt that the conservative vision needs to be a three-dimensional conservative vision that encompasses, all different parts of conservatism, whether it be, kind of your libertarian conservatism or your fiscal conservatism or social conservatism. I believe all of those pieces can work together cohesively, and that was the type of platform I ran on in the leadership race in 2020.
So let's talk about the leadership race a little bit.
Sure.
There's so many interesting intricacies of that leadership race. You seem to have taken just the brunt of everything that happened. But when it comes to some of the policies that you were advocating for, you and Leslyn Lewis were almost identically on the same page. And I'm from Medicine Hat, I'm from the Prairie, and Leslyn Lewis's platform really resonates with people down there. We can get into the nitty-gritty details of it, but essentially, you said this during your announcement as well, about 80% of Canadians are against gender-selective abortion and late-term abortion. But for some reason, in Canada, we cannot have any type of intelligent conversation about abortion without it being 100% legal or 100% against the law. Nobody can find a middle ground there. But I found that you and Leslyn were both saying the same thing about it, and you also said conservatives need to confront these tough subjects head on. Why is it that the CPC is not only not willing to have those discussions, but actively pushing out people who want to have those discussions? But also, why are they courting Leslyn Lewis and not you?
Well, they know that they need social conservative votes and money to win. And so they don't want to fully ostracize them, but at the same time, they're not willing to take on, any causes that are of value to social conservatives. So they believe they're happy to have social conservatives in the party. They just don't want them to have a voice. And frankly, I think that one of the ways to victory is to, if you take a look at, Doug Ford in Ontario or even Stephen Harper before he won his majority, policies like cutting off foreign aid funding for abortion went over well, or it certainly didn't hurt Harper in, the 905, the Toronto suburb areas. Doug Ford, remember, campaigned against the liberal sex ed curriculum, and there was a lot of, people that wouldn't typically vote conservative that were excited about that. So I think there's ways to broaden our tent by hitting on issues that are socially conservative. Absolutely.
One of the other things was this donation. And I have to tell you, I had to Google who he was, look up his name, and research and find out who he is. It is shocking to me that they went that far down the rabbit hole to find something like that. Was there some warning coming up to that they were just looking for absolutely anything, grasping at straws, just to try to toss you from the party?
So on Friday, before that Monday that this story came out, I got a call in the evening from the executive director of the party, Janet Friday Dory. And she was telling me that my efforts to recruit members for the convention were against CRTC rules. So she said that we did a phone blast out to my supporters just to remind them to sign up for this convention. So she calls me and she says, we think you're breaking CRTC rules. And I said, why? She's like, well, you're not allowed to sell things over the phone unless people consent to it. And I said, well, my supporters have given me their number, but beyond that, I'm not selling anything. And she's like, well, you're selling tickets to the convention. And I said, well, I'm not selling anything. You guys are collecting the money, and I'm just reminding people to sign up. I'm not, So she said, well, in any event, we need to see your list of supporters. And at that point, I said, well, who's in trouble? Is it the Conservative Party or is it me? Thinking, well, do they need this to help defend themselves? They're like, nope, we're not in trouble, it's you. And I said, well, if I'm in trouble, I'll keep the list to myself. Thank you very much. And I believe what was happening is that they were concerned that I was bringing in basically, real conservatives into the convention because they wanted the convention to come quickly without anybody realizing it. They weren't really advertising it until I started pounding the table on convention in December. And so I think they wanted to know who it was that supported me so that they could do funny business and prevent them from being delegates to the convention. Because they wanted it to come quickly and quietly without any embarrassment. So on the Monday, so I refused to give them my list. And on the Monday, this story broke. And by Wednesday, I was out of the party. So I believe that this is connected. And I believe that they just didn't know kind of what to do. They wanted an excuse to get me out anyways. And they really, I think, just doubled down on that. So I believe those are connected. And again, I don't know how this newspaper figured this out because as you've noted, this particular fellow donated in a name that nobody knows him by. So some people have heard of, Paul Fromm. Nobody's heard of Frederick Fromm. I'd never heard of this guy. So someone had to do some real digging and piecing things together to figure this out. And I don't know who was doing what behind the scenes, but I absolutely believe that my efforts with convention led into me getting kicked out of the party.
Yeah. Do you think that the current iteration of the CPC, are they essentially waging a war against social conservatives and only working with ones that are okay with basically being seen and not necessarily heard? Any sort of social conservative who raises a voice or pushes back, they seem to disappear rather quickly, but ones that are willing to play ball and just say, well, we'll listen and essentially do nothing, they're welcome in the party still. But it seems like from when Stephen Harper was the leader of the party to where we are now, if you hold any sort of social conservative values, you're pushed back constantly.
Yeah, I mean, O'Toole, I believe, is afraid of them. It's clear that their strategy is sort of, be as sort of unassuming as possible, be as safe as possible, be as uncontroversial as possible. So they're not willing to stand up against some of these things. I believe Stephen Harper, at least early on, understood the value of having, like a 360-degree conservatism in the party. And I think he used that to his benefit. Aaron O'Toole doesn't understand that. A lot of people don't understand it. And I don't think we're really going to be able to form government in an enduring way until we do. I mean, the Conservatives are doing better in the polls now, and that's a good thing. But really, it's based off of the implosion of the Liberals. And if we have to only count on winning when the Liberals implode, I mean, that's not a good strategy. We need to have a strategy that can move forward and maintain government regardless of whether the Liberals are imploding or not. I mean, they were imploding last time and we lost. They're imploding this time and maybe might eke out something. But we have to have an enduring strategy. And that strategy is a comprehensive 360-degree conservatism that's willing to address all facets of Canadian life.
So eventually you see possibly your party, the PPC and the CPC, becoming that Big Tent conservative party again. Do you think it's just a matter of having the right leader that's willing to listen to the social cons, the libertarian conservatives, and the fiscal conservatives and put them back together? Do you think that it's more of a failure of leadership at the top, or do you think conservatism is just changing and that there's just no room left in a moderate conservative party to have social conservative views?
No, I don't think that at all. I think in fact, I mean, when you look at the numbers, particularly those who voted, Leslin and myself first ballot, we make up a large portion of the party. And I think if we really drill down, social conservatives, or at least people who are somewhat or who are more socially conservative than Aaron O'Toole, make up the bulk of the party. I mean, people may not label themselves that way, but most conservatives I know would be against sex-selective abortion, for example. I mean, there's many things that nearly all of us can agree on. As for the different parties, I mean, parties are just paperwork and branding, but movements are people. And I believe that with the right leader and with the right timing, all Canadian Conservatives can come together. And I don't know what banner that will be under, but I hope that will happen soon, and that we can have a movement that can have an enduring impact on Canadian society.
And then focusing back here to the leaders themselves, Jason Kenney ran a very specific way. When he was uniting the right, the way he campaigned, when he put the parties back together, the way he campaigned for leadership there, and then the way he campaigned for premier has been extremely different from the way he's governed. And I think you could ask any conservative, they would say, who is this? What's happening? Aaron O'Toole has appeared to do the exact same thing. When he was running for the leadership of the party, he campaigned one way. And within weeks, you were gone, we're carbon tax, now we're not defunding the CBC. The flip-flops, I mean, there's more flip-flops right now coming out of Aaron O'Toole than there is at a swimming pool. It's unbelievable. Why is it? Do you think that is what these leaders think they need to do to win? because what we're actually seeing is we're seeing the parties fracture. The CPC now has split into 3 different parties. Well, 4. I mean, if you count the Maverick, and the UCP, the Wild Rose Independence Party, is growing massively, and they're splitting again. And these were the people who were supposed to bring the party back together. Do you? Why is that? Why is that happening? Why did they do that?
Yeah, what I suspect is happening is when they win, they're kind of in, the limelight of sort of the media and, these high-level sort of consultants. And they forget what it's like at the grassroots. They forget what it's like at the ground level. And they forget who their supporters are. So, I don't believe that. I mean, I've obviously, if I wanted to play the game, I would still be a conservative, right? I mean, I believe that we have to be consistent, that we have to be honest. And, the Liberals rarely lose their base, right? I mean, if you've lost your base, you're really up the creek without a paddle. So I think that you always have to remember who your friends are. You have to treat your friends well. And that's why I've been disappointed to see how the Conservatives have treated Alberta, because they, Albertans almost to a person voted Conservative last election. And now they're actively saying, well, we can afford to lose votes in Alberta. You have to make sure that you're treating your friends well, that you're treating your base well. And it doesn't mean that you don't try and expand your influence, but you can't compromise on principles that you've always said that you support.
Okay. So maybe focusing more on the riding now specifically. You're from Ontario. I know that you've spent quite a bit of time this year in Alberta, but what can the voters in Airdrie Banff expect from you as their MP if you win this bid? What do they get? Because we've got the different conservative parties and the different aspects of what's going on and the splits within the party. What did they get for themselves for voting for you?
That's right. Well, the first thing I would say is that when you look at the polls, I'm basically the only one that has a shot of winning this, okay, unless something drastically changes, and I think a lot of people want something new. If people look at my track record, I'm a member of Parliament. I have a track record of doing things. I've been able to do a lot as an independent when it comes to fighting against the lockdowns, the vaccine passports, the Paris Agreement, carbon taxes. I have been very vocal on these things. I mentioned a press conference I did with Maxime Bernier. I did another one with whistleblowing doctors on medical censorship that became the most watched political video of all time in 2 days. These are things that I've been able to do, just myself and my team. An independent who is unhinged from the establishment can accomplish great things. I have a following across the country. I'm a known quantity. And people can expect more of the same. They can expect me to fight hard for them and to, really be a beacon for liberty here in Alberta that's desperately needed.
I'm born and raised in Alberta, and one thing that usually happens in Alberta is when we see the Liberal blood in the water like it is right now, we're mad and we like our third parties. The Reform Party came from here, that populist movement. It really resonates in Alberta. So it's not surprising to me that the PPC is sitting at 16% in the polls. And there's quite a real possibility of independents and third party candidates such as yourself winning in some of these ridings. But once Albertans smell Liberal blood in the water, we have this default to just go back to the CPC, vote for them, get them as many votes as they can, make sure they're there, make sure they win. What would you say to those people, and how would you convince them that in this riding specifically, and maybe some of the other ridings across Alberta, that another conservative voice can still be just as effective as voting for the CPC?
Yeah, so in the riding that I'm running in, it is impossible for the Liberals or NDP to win. There is no way that they can win based on the numbers. It's basically either Blake Richards or myself, okay? And so in that scenario, I would say no matter what happens, you're not helping Justin Trudeau. And if it comes down to it, that I'm the last person that's the linchpin between, a conservative government or not, do you want a guy like me who's willing to hold their toes to the fire? Or do you want a guy like Blake Richards who's just going to do whatever they want to do? So this is actually the best alternative for someone who wants, I'm known as one of the most principled conservative members of Parliament in the entire country. And if it does come down that I'm the last person that determines, whether the Conservatives form government or not, you want a guy like me being the linchpin, because as an independent, I can make him honest. I'm sure it's certainly not going to be supporting Justin Trudeau, I can tell you that. But I can make sure that my support comes at the cost of, standing up for Alberta. So it really is a great alternative. In our riding, the Liberals can't win at all. In many Alberta ridings, Liberals and NDP have no shot of winning. So it's actually worthwhile to hope maybe that another candidate can win and keep the Conservatives honest.
Yeah, I feel like that message is starting to hit. I've noticed just in the comments on our videos and comments on our articles that people are starting to realize that with the amount of votes, even if you split 50-50 on a Conservative vote, there's not enough of the population left to put any of the other candidates past that.
Yes.
And I think some people are starting to realize that we can still have a Conservative option, but we can pick that Conservative option, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the CPC party anymore, and we still get a Conservative. And on common issues, there's the ability to work together.
And I'll just give you an example. In my riding, the vote was 70% Conservative last election. The NDP and Liberals got about 10 or 11%. If the Conservative vote is cut in half, then I win. If it's not, then he wins. But there's no possible alternative where the Liberals or NDP win. So it's a great choice for people to be able to, to vote for an actual Conservative without worrying about helping Justin Trudeau.
And one of the other things is obviously we have the Maverick Party. The West is angry. We've done the. I remember the West wants in. I remember all of those bumper stickers years ago. Now it's changed. It's now the West wants out. So you're from Ontario. You're here. What's your vision for either keeping the West in, or if it comes down to it, taking the West out?
Well, listen, that's a good question. And there's no doubt that the frustration levels here and the anger levels are higher than they've ever been. I personally believe that there's a vision of Canada that is good for everybody. And I don't, frankly, if Alberta is doing really well economically and socially and in other ways, that's not bad for other provinces. In fact, that's good for the entire country. So what has been happening is that leadership has been pitting different regions of the country against each other, has been pitting different races of people against each other, European versus Indigenous, white versus black, West versus East. That's exactly what the Liberals like to do. They'd like to divide and conquer. So there's no question that the anger is deserved. When it comes to actual success on the separatist level, all of that's done at a provincial level. I mean, the Maverick is not going to undertake a referendum at a provincial level. They're not going to, change your police force. They're not going to change your pension system and these other things. So there are viable options at the provincial level that have the willpower and the muscle to do these things. So I have many people that come to my rallies that support Wildrose independence provincially and equally support me federally. They say, listen, this is my best federal option. I'd love to support him. This is my best provincial option. I'd love to support them. So I don't think it's inconsistent. I think that, for an angry Albertan, you need to support someone provincially who's willing to fight for you. And as far as federally is speaking, you need to vote for somebody that's willing to, unite the country and get Alberta working again. And I think, when you look at separatism kind of pre-Harper, really died down during Harper. And that was because people understood, even if, Stephen Harper wasn't perfect, that he was not trying to divide the country. He was trying to bring them together. So listen, I think that I think we'd be better off. And I know that there's, I know there's tons of debt and other things, but overall, I think we would be better off if we were humming on all 8 cylinders as a country, coast to coast pipeline infrastructure, energy independence, shipping massive amounts of natural gas and other products to Asia. I mean, this is something that's possible. It's something that should be done. And frankly, that's what I'm aiming for at a federal level. But it doesn't stop you from fighting for what you deserve at the provincial level as well. So I think those things go hand in hand.
Do you think as an MP, being from Ontario, if elected from Alberta, do you think that maybe your message or Alberta's message would resonate more in your home riding in Ontario if you were elected here? Could you go back and convince them, like, hey, this is what's happening out there. This is what's happening to these people. They've done what you guys have done with 2 years of COVID. They've been going through 5 years of economic turmoil. They've been doing 5 years of long-term unemployment. They've seen their resource revenue drive up. The jobs have left the country. They've largely gone to the United States. Do you see that being a bonus and not a detriment from being from Ontario, that you could then take the Alberta message back and speak to the Ontarians and convince them that, hey, what's happening out there is serious. It's important.
Absolutely. I have a large following in Ontario, and I've I've had very large rallies in Ontario in as much as I've done them here. Absolutely, I believe that the Alberta message is a very simple one, and it just needs to be shared. And we're not having leaders that are doing it properly. And I believe, I've been against the Paris Agreement and the carbon tax from day one. That was one difference between Leslie Lewis and I. And I think that these things, getting us out of these agreements, stopping this suicidal attack on our best industries, I think that this is a message that can be sold in other parts of the country. And I'm viewed very credibly by many people in Ontario. And we have other people that are working with us in Quebec as well. So I think that there's a vision for Canada that is best for the country, that's best for everybody. And we should have been doing this decades ago, but it's never too late. It's never too late.
So for people that are interested, what's coming up for you? What campaign events? Where can they find you? How do they catch up with you on the campaign trail?
The best thing to do is to go to my website, dereksloan.ca. You can sign up for my emails there. You can also find me on Facebook. We post all the things that we're doing there. So we will have some events coming up soon. We're doing a lot of door knocking. So if you're in the Banff Airdrie area, you might see me at the door. And if you're not from that area and you have friends and family there, tell them to keep their eyes open. But we're excited to be fighting in this campaign, and I wish everyone all the best. And God bless Canada and God bless Alberta.
Well, I'm excited to keep up with your campaign. Thank you very much for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.